welcome to a Bookish Friday video. So this is going to be my June wrap up. So in June I took part in the Make Your Myth Taker readathon, and we only had to read a minimum of, I think it was 4 books, but me being me, I was like, no, I think I'm going to do 16. So that's what I did. And so yes, but actually in total I actually read 18 books, and I had 3 5 stars, I had 5 4 stars, and I had 10 3 stars. So I again had no 2s or 1 stars, which is what we like to hear. The origin of the books that I read: 2 were borrowed and 16 were owned. That's obviously, again, libraries are still closed due to COVID-19 restrictions, and I really need to start using my Scribd subscription basically. The formats of the books I read: I finally read an ebook. I read 1 ebook in June, I read 1 audiobook, and I read 16 physical books. It really took a lot out of me, I must say. So for that audiobook, it was only a 6-hour audiobook, so that's how many audio hours I listened to. And the page count, and this includes the ebook page count as well, the page count for the total month was 5,982. So for the genres, I read 1 thriller. Yes, I did. No contemporaries, 2 classics, 2 mangas and graphic novels, 2 middle grades, 1 non-fiction, and 10 fantasies. So we know we love them. For our authors, I read 7 books by a male author, I read 10 books by female authors, and I read 1 from a non-binary author. So for the binding, I read 7 hardbacks and 9 paperbacks. So those are the statistics. Let's go on to the 2 books that I read that were not in the Make Your Myth Taker. So the first one of those is the thriller that I read. This is The Rosary Girls by Richard Montanari. I really enjoyed this book. So this book is a detective thriller. I have read another one of Richard Montanari's detective thrillers before. I read The Killing Room early in 2019 and loved that one, and I absolutely loved this one. So this one is about some brutal killings going on in Philadelphia, where young Catholic schoolgirls are found dead, their bodies horribly mutilated, and each one is holding rosary beads, hence the Rosary Girls. And the 2 detectives in charge of the case, who are a veteran cop, Kevin Byrne, and a rookie partner called Jessica Balzano. They are both trying to find the killer and stop the murders. Now I must say, I'm normally pretty good at guessing who done it, but with this one I got it completely wrong. I thought I knew who was the killer, and I was just sideswiped. And it made so much sense. I love it when a detective novel does this to me. I love it when I think I know who's the murderer. I am absolutely 100% sure, and then I'm sideswiped and my jaw is just left hanging. I love it. I gave this 5 stars. It was actually my book of the month. Yes, I will be picking up more of his work. So this was my first sort of read, so that's that one. Now the second book that was not in my Make Your Myth Taker readathon was actually the audiobook that I listened to, which was Chernobyl 012340, the true story of the Chernobyl disaster, and that was written by Andrew Leatherbarrow. I listened to this on Scribd. He does say right at the beginning of the audiobook that he didn't write this to be published. He wrote it as a personal kind of diary, sort of write-up of his time in Chernobyl when he went to visit the site. But somebody, having read it, said, oh, you should publish this, this is really good. So it really does read like it's a personal diary of him going to the site, going on this tour with a bunch of other people who are interested in the Chernobyl disaster, and it discusses about them going out for dinner and riding on the train, and it's not like these are the facts. It's a very personal kind of view of the site with the details kind of thrown in. So for this one I gave it 3 stars. It does make me want to look into the disaster even more, to find out even more details. I missed the Netflix show on it. I did try and find it after I'd listened to the audiobook, but it has now been removed from Netflix, which is a shame. So those were the 2 books that I read that were not in the Make Your Myth Taker readathon. So the first character that I was going for was the exile, and the first book I read was Frankenstein. This is by Mary Shelley. It's only a very short book, and I was really excited to read this after watching the National Theatre production on YouTube. I really enjoyed that show, and I watched the version where Benedict Cumberbatch played Victor Frankenstein. So I was really interested in reading this. Plus as well, I've recently fallen in love with Gothic literature. However, I don't know whether it was the audiobook that I was listening to that just didn't quite grasp the atmosphere that I was hoping for this, or whether I just missed it. I don't know. But this is more like Victor Frankenstein is telling you his side of the story, and then it switches and we get the monster's viewpoint through the story, and I did not expect that. So it kind of threw me for a loop. So I think that this is one of those books that I would like to reread again in the future, now that I know what to expect and I can just concentrate on the goodness that is Mary Shelley's work, because this is a book that I know I could potentially fall in love with. So I did only give this a 3 stars, but I think it's one of those that I want to reread in the future. The next book I read for Exile was Hourglass by Claudia Gray. This is the 3rd book in the Evernight series. So this is a story about a vampire girl, and she goes to a vampire school and she meets a boy there and things happen. It's kind of that corny kind of hush hush kind of writing, kind of story telling, but I have been thoroughly enjoying it. It's so different to what we're normally used to. We're normally used to a human girl falling in love with a vampire boy and she wants to be a vampire, but in this we have a vampire girl and a human boy, and so it completely turns the story around on its head, and I love this. I really am enjoying it so much. I gave this one a 4 stars, and I am going to be reading the 4th book in the series within July, so looking forward to seeing the finale in the series. There is a 5th book, but I believe it's like a spin-off and follows one of the characters that are in these books, which I'm looking for that book. I think I might have found a copy of it on World of Books, so I will hopefully be ordering that very soon. But yeah, 4 stars for Hourglass. And the next book that I read for Exile was actually my ebook for the month, and that was the first volume of the graphic novel Lock and Key. I read that on my Amazon Fire. It was weird, very strange. So it's about a house that has these keys that unlock doors, and strange things happen when you walk through that door. It was, I think I might need to reread it again because I was very confused. But I normally am in the first volume of a graphic novel because you're not getting much background to it. I believe that there is, the father of the family is murdered and his killer is put in jail. The family move to this old house and there's something in the well. The boy can see there's something in the well. There's a lot happening. It was very strange. I gave it 3 stars. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the artwork. I think I definitely want to continue the series, and I think I will understand the story a lot more as I go through the series. But yeah, it was weird, very weird. The 4th book that I read for the Exile character was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is the last book that is published in the Gullivers world that Leigh Bardugo has created with the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and then also the Six of Crows duology, and then this is the start of another duology, I believe. The next book is not out yet. I'm not even sure if she's finished writing it yet, but I loved this. I thought this was really good. Where's my score for it? I gave it 4 stars. I just absolutely love this world that Leigh Bardugo has created. This whole, I believe the map is in here. Yeah, we have a very detailed map of the land. This follows King Nikolai, who is a character that we meet in the 2nd book of the Gullivers trilogy, which is it Shadow and Bone? No, Siege and Storm. And Nikolai is one of those characters that I really enjoyed when we first met him, and he kind of really gets a spotlight in this story. And there's a dual timeline going on, like we're following King Nikolai and problems that he's having, and he's having some problems after the events of Ruin and Rising. And then we're also following another character who is called Nina, and she is reeling from the aftermath of events that happened in Crooked Kingdom. So we have these 2 timelines coexisting, these 2 characters having to deal with these problems that they're having to solve. And yeah, it was a real sort of journey through this book, and I really can't wait for the next book. I don't know when the next book is out, so yeah, I will have to wait for that. I believe there is another book called The Language of Thorns, and I think that's like short stories set in the Gullivers world. So I might have a look and see if I can pick that one up, just to tide myself over until the next book comes out, because I really do enjoy this whole world that she's created. So yes, and in my opinion, I do believe that you should read them, the Gullivers trilogy first, then the Six of Crows duology, and then move on to King of Scars. Because if you tried to go straight into the Six of Crows duology or straight into King of Scars, Yes, you would be able to enjoy the story as is, but you wouldn't see those little nuggets of information, those little treasures that Lee Bardugo has sort of sifted throughout the story that refer back to events or things that occurred in the original trilogy. So yes, I do think you should read the Gushivers trilogy. So, and why shouldn't you? They're good books. So yeah, 4 stars for King of Scars. So the next character that I was reading for was the Oracle, and the first book I read for that was Into the Crooked Place by Alexandra Christo. I really enjoyed this one. This was another 4 stars for me. I did not know what this book was going in, um, but we have a world where there has been a magic disease. So people who have used magic too much have become crazy and insane and died. And then we have kind of like this underworld where you have like the big boss, and then you have like the kingpins and things like that. And you have a young girl called Tavia, and she is like a little scam artist. She sells these potions and these magical items to make a bit of money to get on in life. She has no family, and she is friends with a couple of young girls, and she used to be best friends with a boy called Wesley, but he has moved up in the world in this kingpin sort of underworld kind of place, and so now he's like too big for his boots to be her friend anymore. But they all have to come together, these 4 young people, Wesley and the 3 girls, and they all have to come together to try and take down the big kingpin before he creates an army to destroy the land. He wants to take over the world, don't they all? And they have to, yeah, they have to find their way to this magical place that nobody can seem to get to. This was a great adventure. There was a lot of sassiness and a lot of bickering in here, and I absolutely loved that. I really, really enjoyed it, and I will definitely be looking out for the sequel of this as well. So yeah, 4 stars for that one. The next book I read was Finale, which was book 4 in the Hush Hush series. I was buddy reading this with Charlotte, and yeah, we finished the series, so go us. So Finale, I ended up giving this a 3 stars. It just didn't feel like the final book for me. Final books should be a crescendo of, which funnily enough I think was the 3rd book or the 2nd book, but it should be a crescendo of everything building up and building up, the tension getting tighter and tighter, and it just didn't do that. It kind of meandered for the first like 2/3 of it, and then it was almost like the author went, oh, hang on a minute, this is supposed to be the last book. Uh, okay, drama. So yeah, it just didn't quite hit the mark for me. But yeah, we finally finished the series. So I will be unhauling those books simply because I have no intention of rereading them in the future, and the majority of them were about a 3 star. I really enjoyed the first book, and I flew through the first book in 2 days. I just couldn't put it down, but the second, third and fourth books just went for me, so no, I will be unhauling them. The next book I read was The Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Hackwith, and this was gifted to me by a good friend on Twitter, but she's also a lady that attends my local Waterstones book club when COVID-19 isn't affecting us, and she gifted me this, and I am so grateful for that. I really enjoyed this one. The Library of the Written, I gave it a 3 stars, but I would say it was a high 3 stars. I'm in an R-ing between a 3 and a 4 for this one, but I just felt that it didn't quite reach the 4 stars for me. I will be looking out for the sequel of this. I think it is part of a duology. I don't think it's a series, but this was so interesting. So we have a library in hell that is full of the books that have not been finished, that authors have started to write, but they've never finished. And we have a librarian who looks after these books, because every now and again the characters in these books try to escape to try and find their author to convince them to finish the book so they have their story told. And we have a character escape and he finds his author, but there are consequences, and our librarian, the escaped character, and the muse that is the librarian's assistant are all trying to put right the consequences of this character's actions, and someone is trying to take over the library, shall we say. It was really interesting. Not a story that I've ever come across before. It felt quite unique in its storytelling, in its ideas. I don't know if maybe I was feeling a bit slumpy at this point, because I really did feel the pressure in June, and maybe that's why I got a bit of a lower score. But it took me quite a while to get through this book. I really felt slumpish reading it, so that's why I ended up getting the 3 rather than the 4 stars. But as I say, I will be picking up the sequel to this, so hopefully if I reread it again in the future and I'm in maybe a better mindset, it might get a higher rating. So yes, and it's definitely going to stay on my shelves because it was gifted to me, so yes. Thank you. The last book that I read for the Oracle character was Fairy Tales for Millennials by Bruno Vincent. This book was interesting. Now, I gave it a 4 stars. I thought it quite funny. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek kind of humour in here. Now, if you get offended pretty easily about certain situations, you might not enjoy this. You might consider this a bit rude, and you might consider this a bit offensive. There was a lot of commentary on some situations. There was a few times when I felt a little bit like, oh, I don't know if you should say that. So I was not sure about that. So these are fairy tales that are literally set in the modern day. So we have the Wicked Queen, the Snow White's stepmother, actually not killing Snow White. She actually sends her off to create a school in the woods for the underprivileged, because women shouldn't try to beat down each other and put down each other for being prettier than them or whatever. They should build each other up and support each other, which I agree. We really, really should. As women, we are very quick sometimes to go, oh, have you seen the state of her makeup? Oh, have you seen that? I've done it myself a few times, and then I've had to go, Nicola, stop doing that. That is wrong. And I've chastised myself for doing it. So it was quite refreshing to see that, and to see that positivity in there. And then you have like Cinderella basically telling Prince Charming that she doesn't need to marry him. She's quite independent, and yeah, she doesn't need him. Um, yeah, and then we've got the Billy Goat's Gruff getting trolled, and they actually just start talking to the troll and asking him why he's so mean, and is it because somebody's been bullying him, and so he just, because he's hurting, he wants to hurt everybody else as well, and that actually, if he just asks for help, then people will help him, and he doesn't have to be so mean to people. It's got a specific audience, I think. If you're easily offended, maybe not the book for you. But I gave this a 4 stars. So the next character that I was reading for was the Viking. And the first book I read for that was The Deep by Rivers Solomon. This is just a short novella. And this is a story about the descendants of pregnant African slave women that were thrown overboard by their slave owners. So they call themselves Wajanru, I think, not mermaids, not sirens. And basically, Yetu, once a year, brings all the Wajanru together, and she shares the memories so that they can understand where they come from, who they are, and what happened to them in the past, or to their descendants in the past. And she decides this time that she doesn't want those memories back this time. She can't cope with it. It's making her depressed, and it's hurting her, holding on to all these memories that all the other Wajinru don't remember. And so she tries to escape, and she escapes to the human world. It was interesting to the point that it was completely different kind of mermaid story than what I'm used to, but because it was different, because it was so unique, it was I was kind of unsure how to feel about it. Again, this was actually one of the last books that I read in the month, and by this point I was just so tired of reading that again, this is another one that I would like to reread in the future, to give it another chance. I really started to hit a bit of a block at the end of June. So The Deep, I did give 3 stars, but as I say, I think it's one of those that it's only short, so I could slip it in again before the end of the year, just to sort of give it another try. But yeah, it was very different, very unique, and just a different take on mermaids and the legend behind them. But they don't call themselves mermaids or sirens. They're Wajinru. Or that's how I said it anyway. So, yes. The next book I read was, well, the next book that was on the list was The Well of Ascension Part 2 of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. So this continues the story of the Final Empire. So in the Final Empire we had Vin, who comes across a crew of men who are trying to overthrow the Dark Lord. She learns that she is Mistborn, which means that if she consumes all the metals, then she has all sorts of different powers. And this story is a continuation of the events that happened at the end of the Final Empire. So now we have Vin questioning who she is. That's literally the basis of this story, is Vin trying to decide who she is. Is she part of normal society, or is she so unique and so special that She should be with people like her. She should be with other Mistborns. So that's the main majority of this story, and they are still trying to discover where the Well of Ascension is, and discover the history of how the Dark Lord came into his power. And there are mists in this world, and they're quite dangerous. The local Scar people fear the mists, so they're trying to discover the origin of these mists and where they come from and what they are and why they are feared and things like that. So I'm really enjoying this. I will be moving on to the final book, which is The Hero of Ages. Probably not in July, maybe in August I might pick it up. I just wanted a bit of a break from these large chunky books for a while, as I'm taking it easy throughout the month of July in my reading, she says. But yeah, so I read that one. This one I gave a 3 stars. It wasn't as good as The Final Empire, which I gave 5 stars, and to be honest, I felt like this one dragged for the majority of it. I will say that The Final Empire does kind of, it chugs along quite slow at the beginning, but the ending is well worth the wait. This one didn't quite do that for me. It just seemed to chug along and not really the big sort of ending in this one. Although it was interesting, it just didn't grip me like the ending of The Final Empire did. And I did consider giving this a 4 stars, but then I thought, well, if The Hero of Ages, the 3rd book, is better than this but not as good as The Final Empire, I can't really be giving this one and The Hero of Ages 4 stars. So I gave this a 3 stars so that it gives me the scope to hopefully give The Hero of Ages either 4 or 5 stars if it's better than this one. So here's hoping. So there's that one. And then the next book that I read for the Viking was Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. This was literally a book about gobbledygook. Like, it's almost like the writer was just writing whatever weirdness came into his head. So we have Gulliver, who goes on his travels. He's married, but he keeps going off travelling and comes across different lands. So he comes across Lilliput, which is full of really, really small people. He comes across another land which is full of giants. He comes across another land where horses rule and humans are slaves. That was really weird, especially because the Hoonahans. Is it the Hoonahans? Yeah, something like that. It's just, yeah, the Hoonahans and the Yahoos. Humans were the Yahoos. It was so weird and so full of gobbledygook. It was just, it was bizarre. Like, I really wonder what the author was taking when he was writing this. So was he drunk, or was he on some kind of powder that he maybe shouldn't be taking? Because it was just woohoo, like total nuts, total but enjoyable. It was so, I was like, what? Now where are you off to? It was just, it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Gulliver's Travels, I gave 3 stars, mainly because it just, like, it didn't, there was no real, like, danger or anything like that. It was just like, he was off on his journeys. So, no, nothing to really get your teeth into. So, but 3 stars is good. Like, it's, 3 stars for me is, it's good. I'm glad I read it. Yeah, it was enjoyable. So, don't worry. So, the last book that I read for the Viking was Saga, Volume 3. All I can say about this, I'm no prude, but really, do we really? Like, like, do we need, like, that's the back. Like, that's the back. I'm no prude, but I like the story, and I do want to continue reading these graphic novels for the story. But there are some parts of this that are just pure pornographic. It's as simple as that. And I just don't see how it's relevant to the story. Like, we get there in love, but there are some just some actions in here that are literally pornographic. And I know it's only a graphic novel, it's only a picture, it's not live action, but yeah, anyway, I gave this a 3 stars. I think I'm just getting tired of the graphic. I'm just getting tired of the pornographic content in here, but I'm enjoying the story. I like the artwork when it's not showing wobbly bits. But yeah, it's okay. It's fine. Saga is about basically Romeo and Juliet. Porno. Literally. That's what it is. And the final character that I went for was Courtier. And the first book I read for this was Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Infernal Devices series in the Shadowhunter world that she has created. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I'm really enjoying this series, and I'm managing to fly through this a lot quicker than I did the Mortal Instruments. So I will hopefully be moving on to the final book in the trilogy, which is Clockwork Princess, very, very soon. So, but a bit like Hero of Ages, I probably will wait till August to do that. So yes, that's that one. The next book that I read was the third book in the Magisterium series, which is The Bronze Key, written by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. This is another series that I'm buddy reading with Charlotte, and I really, really enjoy this series. So The Bronze Key, I gave 5 stars. Why did I like this so much? Oh, yes. So, this is the third book in the series, and shit is really hitting the fan in this one. I really enjoyed this. Like, this was really turning things on their heads. There was so much, so much exciting things happening in this story at this point. To be honest, I actually had other books on my TBR for the Myth Take readathon, and I actually ended up changing some of the books, A, because I was running out of time, and B, because after I finished this book, I so desperately wanted to get on to the 4th book. So you'll be seeing that in a moment. Yeah, I sped through this book. I absolutely adored it. I love this series with all my heart. It's been really, really good fun, and definitely, yeah, it's so exciting and unique and different, and I love it. So yeah, that's that one. The next one, as I said, was the 4th book in the Magisterium series. This is The Silver Mask, again by Holly Black, Cassandra Clare. So we are continuing the series, and this one, again, shit hitting the fan. So Cal, our main character in this one, is in a hell of a lot of trouble. He's abandoned by his friends. He is having to fight for his life. It's just, I keep saying to Charlotte, are we ready to move on to the 5th book yet, please? Because I need to get it read very, very soon. So I'm asking her literally daily now, are you ready to move on to the 5th book? Are you ready to move on to the 5th book? She thinks she's hit a bit of a reading slump at the moment, bless her. So I'm trying to get her to read. But yeah, I'm not going to read the 5th book without her. We have gone through all of the series together so far, and I really want to go to the end of the series with her. I'm not about to abandon her at the last post, so yes, just waiting for Charlotte to pull herself out of the reading slump, and then we can finish the series. But yes, the Silver Mask I gave 3 stars. I did feel like this one kind of dropped the ball a little bit. But again, I read this near the end of June, again, where I started to feel a bit slumpish, so that again could have affected my scores. I'm looking at the where I've written down all the books, because as I write them in my bullet journal, I'm writing them in as I'm finishing them, and I can see that literally the last couple of books, they're all 3 stars. So it seemed like the last few books that I read in the month all suffered from me feeling a bit slumpy. So yeah, but I love the series as a whole, so cannot wait to get to that final book with Charlotte. And the last book that I read for Myth Take Readathon, and the last book that I'm going to be talking about in this video is this one, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. 5 stars. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Now, when people talk about the ACOTAR series, so they talk about Feyre and they talk about Rysand, but they don't talk about Tamlin. Now, I don't know if something maybe happens in the 2nd book, but I really liked Tamlin in this book, and I actually really liked, oh, what was his name? The other guy, Lucian. So I really liked Tamlin in this series, and I really liked Lucian as well. I actually really liked Lucian. He was, yeah. I hope we get to see more of him in the 2nd book. I know we're going to get more Rysand in the 2nd book, and I know a lot of people prefer the 2nd book to the 1st book, but I really enjoyed this one. So this is a story about Feyre. She is out hunting to help feed her family, and she kills a wolf that turns out to be a fairy. And so another fairy turns up and tells her that she has to pay the price for killing the fairy, and or the fae, and she has to go with him to his home and stay there as a prisoner. It's a bit like Beauty and the Beast. I think it is a Beauty and the Beast kind of retelling. And yeah, the story goes from there. I really enjoyed it, and I actually cannot wait to move on to the 2nd book, and I've just recently purchased the 3rd book and the novella Court of Frost and Starlight. Now, I know that one has not got great reviews, but you know, I'm the sort of person, I'll listen to your review and your opinion, and then I will make up my own mind. So yeah, I'm that kind of person. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. 5 stars. This actually helped pull me slightly out of my reading slump at the end of the month, because I kind of left this close to the end, so this really helped me to end the month on a bit of a high. So I was really, really grateful for this book by the end. So that is it. That is all the books that I read in June. That was 18. That's a lot of books, and that is why I'm taking July just that little bit slower. So I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!